Deion Sanders is going viral again, and I don't think people fully understand the situation and what his actual intent was.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I am your host, Kevin Borba. Today's episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. It's the best way to get tickets. Joining me today, the man, the myth, the legend, Phillip Dukes, or Dukes the Scoops, as we call him on Twitter, or X, I guess it's called now. It's a whole thing. We all know what it is. But Phillip, I appreciate you for hopping on. You have provided some amazing insight in the behind-the-scenes realm of Colorado. And you had a great breakdown of the whole Deion Sanders kind of snaps at a couple media members. And you just broke it down for people. And I think there's a lot of confusion with the whole situation. So as someone who I think fully understands what's going on, talk to us about what's being misunderstood, where the sort of coldness from Coach Prime comes from, right? Like, because there is a coldness there for him and that individual reporter, and just sort of the overall relationship of coach and media member.
I mean, when you break it down, for me, it was kind of more so like understanding that I think the misnomer or the narrative that Coach Prime was upset about a ranking that a member of CBS Sports who had nothing to do with any of this basically put Colorado second to last, or actually put him as the second to last or the second to worst coach in the whole Big 12. And I think that's what I wanted to really hit on more than anything was that, bro, he ain't mad about a ranking. Now, as far as him snapping on the media member, like in the video that I said on the On3 channel, I was on On3 Recruits actually. I was like, hey, look, there are very few people that can actually see eye to eye with the powers that be. When you have a guy who's been on 60 Minutes twice, who's invited CBS, who's been in the media for years and years and years, the way that he sees things are going to be a little bit different, and he's going to be privy to information that the average head coach may not be privy to. Well, he got some information back about something that, and I talked about it on the video where CBS kind of pulled a move on him. And as you can see, he's clearly not happy. And I called it an abuse of trust, or there was a misuse of trust, because when you have a working relationship with somebody, for example, me and you, we're starting our working relationship. I feel like, hey, today you called me earlier. Hey, I got something to do. Hey, Dukes, don't worry about it. We'll push it down later. Boom. Now we have a working relationship. All right. 2 years down the line, we have something that we feel like is going to be profitable for both of us, and something that we want to work on, and it doesn't go that way, and I don't really communicate. Now, that's not the end all be all of it, but it is a portion of his issue with CBS. And I think that reporter just got caught in the crossfire. So I think he was very, very the CBS reporter, I think he was very careful to make sure that the said reporter knew that it wasn't about him. Now the reporter had a little juice too, because he was like, hey, look, bro, I'm not CBS national. I'm CBS local.
Right.
I like the fact that he said that. Just because it was like, hey, dog, like, don't lump me with everybody else. But the issue was enough for Coach Prime to say, look, I appreciate you. This is not aimed at you, but I cannot allow your corporation to profit off of me in this moment, because until they fix what they need to fix with me. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think that was a way for him to, wave the flag to CBS, like, bro, you won't come over here until we fix what we got to fix. And the second part of it, the one he was like, man, dog, you don't like us. I mean, I think that was cut and dry. I looked at the last 70 articles that the reporter from CBS wrote, and only 2 of them mentioned Deion Sanders by name. And neither one of them was like incendiary. You look at what this guy wrote, and I mean, like every other day is like almost the frequency of disparaging articles on Coach Prime in Colorado were so disproportionate that you have to have a problem with me. And I think that's all it was.
Yeah. And honestly, not to like, we're not singling anybody out here, but the second reporter who you're mentioning from the Denver Post, Colorado fans that I think that aren't newer Colorado fans, we'll just call the guys that the people that went to Colorado were Buffs fans for life, whatever. They've said that he's kind of been towing the line frequently, even before Deion Sanders was there, of like articles referencing the program not being good. So obviously, that's just his viewpoint on how he covers the team. And me and you talked off camera, and I've talked about it on the past couple days. I think people and fans specifically get upset when people cover sports like this. And I think, not to defend him, but that's how he views he should do his job. But at the same time, he can't be upset when Deion Sanders says, I don't want to talk to you. Or Warren Sapp, there was a video today that I saw, and he tried to ask a question again, and you just hear next question in the background. Like, you sort of risk burning those bridges by the way you present yourself. Like, if I said, hey, Phillip, I really want to work with you, and then I did a whole video like talking about, wow, Phillip is stupid and he doesn't know what he's talking about. Phillip's not gonna that's just how it goes. Like, it just
Right.
goes like, you have to be careful with how you run things. And I'm not telling him, I mean, he doesn't have to change however he does things, but it'll obviously make being a Colorado beat reporter a little more difficult if you don't really have the ability to be privy to that information. And so, what do you think? Because I think the fan reaction has been a little all over the place. I think the fan reaction to Deion Sanders or Coach Prime saying, I don't want to talk to you because you're worth this network, or I don't want to talk to you because you don't like us. I think we were blowing it out of proportion because it is Deion Sanders. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's probably would you venture to say those two incidents were probably about maybe 15% of the total interaction that he had that day as far as media days? It was a very small portion, but it was the loudest
Mhm.
portion, right? So,
Right.
and I
Yeah.
think and coach has a way of making things known. He knew what was gonna happen. I mean, and sometimes you want to take a stand. So that was the guy, the guy
Mhm.
who doesn't like Colorado. That was the stand for the year, because Coach
Mhm.
Prime knows that this guy is going to be a guy who's going to want to interview later in this year, because he truly feels that Colorado is going to be the biggest story in college football on
Mhm.
the field, not off the field.
Right.
Uh, and along that same line of thinking, I think that he thinks CBS is going to want to holler at him a little later on,
Yep.
because if Colorado does what Coach Prime thinks they can do, then there's not going to be there won't be a bigger story in college football, and he knows that. And I mean, he's saying it like it ain't like last year it fell on at first it was kind of like can Colorado do it? You go out, you have that great start, then you end up with only 4 wins, and then people are
Mhm.
saying, he always thinks it doesn't matter. He's gonna say playoffs regardless. Well, I think there's a little bit different belief this year because of the team. And
Mhm.
when you look at the way they backfield the talent on that roster, the depth that they have now, there is real optimism that Colorado can be one of those 12 teams at the end.
Yeah, the way he improved the roster, I think, is night and day. I've been saying on my show a lot. I'm a little more blunt. It's just how I am. I said last year he was kind of taking anyone that wanted to come to Colorado. Like, that was just the vibe. It was like, everyone who played here before, get out. We don't want you. Anyone who wants to come here, come on down. If you're new, we want you. And then in his
Right.
Amazon Prime documentary, we saw him say, we need guys with experience. We need guys who have played. And so clearly that was a point of emphasis. And he got those guys. Like, he has some guys that are multi-year starters. He has guys who were projected to be cornerstones of whatever program they came from. So it'd be really interesting to sort of see how that changes. But I really liked your perspective on just the overall media hoopla. And I talked about it on yesterday's show. Nick Saban and every coach in the country has a beat reporter that they don't like. Obviously, Nick Saban retired, but you know what I mean. So every coach has a reporter where it's like, Kevin's asking a question, here we go. And then then I ask the question, and they're like, yep, it went well. And they just give those dry responses. I think Deion Sanders, in a unique way, while it is going viral because it shows him shutting down the local media, he did say he'd give him a chance to talk about it off camera, right? So
Yeah.
at least he's giving him a chance to rehash or re-talk about what went down between them. So I thought that was interesting. Most coaches will kind of just give you the cold shoulder. As someone who has received a cold shoulder from a coach before, it
Yeah.
happens. Like, it
Right.
happens. Like, it's just one of those things. So I thought that was interesting. When we come back, we're going to be talking about Phillip's conversation with Coach Prime from Big 12 Media Day. But first, a word from our sponsors over at Gametime. If you guys need tickets, Gametime is the place for you. They're an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. I went to a Braves game the other day with my girlfriend, now fiance. We got engaged this past weekend. Very exciting, I know. And we used Gametime. We wanted to make sure that we weren't sitting behind a random pole or this weird curve in the stadium. And we had great seats, had a great time. And I'd recommend Gametime to all of you. So you could take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Gametime. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. Joining me today is Phillip Dukes from On3, the man with all the scoops, the man that has it all covered, and a very nice chain on, might I add. He's killing the game over here. You got the opportunity, which it's a rare opportunity these days, to talk to Coach Prime one-on-one. So it was just mano y mano, and you talked about everything from recruiting, his shoes, his whole mindset heading into 2024. What was your favorite, I guess, answer or sort of thing you learned? Like, what nugget did you love the most?
I think the fact that and he got on me about this too afterwards. I kind of cornered him a little bit on the will he go somewhere to recruit a high school player? Will he actually make a visit this year?
At home visit, yeah.
I think what got lost in that was the fact that he never said I won't. He said it was hard. He said it would be difficult, but he never said no. And I think in that interview, I talked to him probably about 2 days later. He was like, "Dog, you got me at the end, right?" He was like, I haven't really, he was joking, but he was serious. He said, "Now look, that'd have been anybody else, I'd have gave it to him." He said, "But hey, man, and we talked because I'm not gonna spoil anything, but the thing is this: I know for a fact when you want the type of guys that he's recruiting at the highest level, especially when you're recruiting a guy like Julian Lewis, and he's not done. He's going to go after other 5 stars. But when you're recruiting those type of guys, sometimes you have to pull out that extra stop. And what I said early in the year was, man, Deion Sanders has a golden bullet because the time that he ever chooses to go and pull up the way that Deion pulls up to a high school or a home visit, it's going to be absolute cinema.
Yeah.
And so I think that knowing that, I was just kind of, like, hey, you think you're going to use that bullet this year? And he was like, well, Dukes, maybe, it was funny, but he definitely hit me up about a couple days later, like, hey, dog, you got me at the end, but I'm gonna let you slide. Which
you gotta ask an uncomfortable question sometimes, because we saw the story. I think it was the USA Today. It was a really interesting breakdown because I honestly didn't realize coaches left that much. But it was like Jim Harbaugh, like 400 visits, Steve Sarkisian, 300 visits, and it was like Nick Saban, 300 visits, and so he had 0. And it was like, it's interesting that he didn't at that point has made it seem that he doesn't need to do that. So I appreciated the question because it's like that's all something we want to know. Now, obviously, he probably didn't love the question, but sometimes that's a part of the job, right?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think there's a way to do it, like just like the way we talked earlier, as far as like asking that question. Now, like even in the video that I put out yesterday on 3 recruits, I was like, and the show is called the 5-Star Flex for you. Of those of you who don't know, I interviewed Colorado current players. I got a really good interview with Colson Hood. I got Metrez Walker, Colorado commit, Coach Flea. So I do a lot of work with Colorado, and but on the show, I was talking about how you have to toe a line. And I got this directly from Stephen A. Smith about 2 weeks ago. There's a line that you have to toe between journalistic integrity and personal relationships. And I think that it's really important for guys like us to be able to kind of monitor that line, because what you don't want to do is cut off the line of communication where you can't get anything, but you also want to get enough to where you can give something. So I think in that whole interview, now the stuff that was cool, I asked him, can the media get shoes? He shuts me down like ASAP. He's like, nah, bro. That was cool. Hearing him talk about his kids, like, hey, man, look, it ain't my fault that your daddy ain't do what he's supposed to do. That was classic Deion. But I think that my favorite takeaway was probably the fact that he answered my question without answering it in a fashion in terms of high school recruiting visits. He answered it in a way that only Coach Sanders could do, but he never said no. And I think that's something that Colorado fans should be like, oh, if we see this, we know it's probably going down.
Yeah, I think it was about 2 months ago. I pitched to the world, if you will, that he should pick however many recruits. Say it's 10. We'll call it the magic number 10 or whatever the number is. I don't know what it would be. And those are his prime targets, pun intended, obviously. I'm a very punny guy. That's what I do. And those are the guys that he visits. And it's like, hey, I'm visiting you 10. You guys are my priorities. And I think that could be a huge move for him. And I thought that was interesting that you said it, because I was like, that's cool that we're on the same wavelength. Okay, there was another point that you guys talked about that stood out to me. You mentioned the shoes already. Let's just talk about his cultural impact, right? Obviously, you could speak on it better than I can. I'm obviously not black. So he has a cultural impact that not many coaches have. He's a Hall of Famer, played at Major League Baseball. He's really good at social media. He is very in touch with what's going on. He's very beloved in the athletic and hip hop community and everything in between. So talk about how that helps him recruiting wise, because there's no other coach in college football that has that impact or has that sort of reach.
Yeah, I mean, the Air DT Max 96, right now, they're hard to get. If I turn my camera around, you'll see over 100 pair of tennis shoes that are and that's a shoe that I couldn't get my hands on. And I think what he means to the culture, man, is just the flair and the pizzazz that he brought to the game. There was a guy who did it in baseball, there was a guy who did it in basketball, and he was the guy that did it in football. Even the infusion of hip hop culture. MC Hammer on the sideline when the Falcons go back in black in '92. Like, those are things that showing my age, but those are things that I'll never forget. Shoot the bandana on, you got pictures of us playing out. I'm from College Park, Georgia, near the airport. There, you got pictures of CPYFC College Park Youth football guys got on bandanas. Like, nobody else was doing that but Deion. And we saw it. We saw him perform at a high level. He was one of the first people that we saw at a high level to talk the type of trash he did and be able to back it up consistently in football. Like, we saw Muhammad Ali do it in boxing, and we saw people make guarantees and other sports. But in football, as far as from our culture, who was really tapped in, he was the first guy to talk, what, and back it up. And I think that really kind of endeared him. He was almost like the Ric Flair of football. For people who love wrestling, like Ric Flair was the wheeling and dealing, jet flying, limousine riding. What did he say? Kid stealing, wheeling, dealing, son of a gun. And that's kind of how Deion Sanders was, man. And I just think that it's a bigger than life thing to get a guy like this, because nobody else has the opportunities off the field that he does. The only person who could probably get close would be Nick Saban. And if you look at what they've done in college football as head coaches, just football wise, the disparity is so crazy. But Deion's celebrity that he brings with him is so large that there was nobody else in college football who Aflac could have got to make the same impact as a Nick Saban.
Right.
So I just think his play on the field, what he did off the field, I mean, and think about Atlanta culture, Prime 21, he had a whole nightclub in Atlanta. I mean, there was a lot going on with Deion Sanders in Atlanta, so I see it a little bit differently. But then I think about it like Atlanta basically was the cultural base for hip hop culture from '96 on. After the East Coast, West Coast beef with Tupac and Biggie and all that ends, after Freaknik, everybody and their mama moved to Atlanta. Atlanta takes over the rap game. It wasn't New York. It wasn't East Coast. You name it. Platinum artist after platinum artist. And the influence, and all of those artists were influenced in some type of way by Deion Sanders. So I think if it's let's say we always talk about Bill Belichick culture tree. Well, Deion Sanders has a culture tree. And when you look at the culture tree, you're probably going to see 1 million platinum artists, designers, influencers that come off of that tree.
I like that. Also, I'd like a moment of silence for our California hip hop, because as a California native, we had it and then we lost it. Let's talk about, there was a specific question that you asked him about Shador, Shiloh, and Travis. And to sort of just summarize it all, it was basically like, everyone thinks you're leaving because they're leaving. And he has assured everyone thousands of times that he's not going to the NFL, which it makes me laugh that every time someone interviews him, they're like, so NFL? And he's like, no, I don't want to. And then they're like, okay, but where are you going next year? What was sort of your favorite part about that question in particular? Because he honestly handled that question in a way that I think was a little different with you specifically than he had before. Like he dropped a quote that I really enjoyed. So talk about that.
I just think, man. All right, so I guess I would say I kind of cheated a little bit because I already knew what the answer was going to be, kind of, because I heard it already. Yeah, I
team up.
kind of cheated a little bit, but I just think that for a guy who is used to people talking about him, to have such a question that's such low hanging fruit that has to be asked all the time, he has to find different ways to answer the same question. And every time he answers it a little bit differently. He gave me a quote that kind of just I don't want to butcher the quote, but what he gave me was, let me back out of this for a minute. Let me just get here. Deion Sanders, what he represents as a man is not a hand out mentality, but a hand up mentality. So me being a African American journalist in a field where there aren't many guys who do what I do, there may be 16 jobs like mine in the world, and there are 2 black guys. So when we look at that percentage, looking at the culture, and I don't mean to get into this whole race discussion, but what I do want to say is this: for somebody who identifies with the culture, Coach Prime was like, you know what, this is a guy that has something that I haven't seen a lot of, and I'm going to try to give him something because the culture gave me so much. And so instead of him giving me a handout, you don't see him. I'm not flying into Colorado on his private jet, and I'm not doing it. But in the scope of reality,
right,
and even asking a question that everybody else has asked, he gave me a little something extra where it's like, all right, I gave that to Phillip Dukes.
Yeah.
So and that's his almost penance for what the culture has given to him. For something like, oh man, I got a guy who's from the culture. I did my research on this guy. He's certified in Atlanta. I know. Hey, Pac-Man, what's Dukes like? Oh yeah, that type stuff. So being able to be a guy who he trusts like that, I think is a major responsibility. And like we talk about, like towing that line, right? As far as like, hey coach, I gotta ask you this. It's coming. Hey coach, I gotta talk about this. You know, this. Hey, I like, for example, I recorded that whole show yesterday without asking them for permission. Because I knew I was privy to some information that I didn't ask. But I wanted to do it in a way where I could kind of break down what I knew his mindset was to be, but also give some insight into the larger situation that has nothing to do with me. And I was very close to overstepping. And he let me know, like yesterday, he puts a tweet out last night. And he's like, yeah, thanks for not saying everything. Like, which I got the joke in that. He was like, yeah, thanks for not telling the world my business, but great job. Like, so
also he dropped a Sanford and Sons reference. That might be the oldest he's ever seen, because I didn't know what that meant. I had to look that up. I was like, that might be the oldest I've ever seen Deion Sanders seem.
Yeah, he did. Right. Straight insanity, right? But yeah, man, I just think like, even in that, to answer your original question, I think the reason that he answered the question the way he did was just to kind of give me that hand up, not out, and for me to kind of take it and kind of grow on it. Which, shoot, I mean, a week later, I've got Kirby. I got a one-on-one sit down with Kirby Smart, so I think I did my part. And,
yes,
and
sir.
So I think things will continue to go in that manner.
Yeah, for sure. And like, honestly, I'll read the quotes just so people listening or watching can hear them. So you asked a question about Travis, Shador, and Shiloh heading to the NFL, and you asked him if he compares, or if they compare themselves to him. And he says, I don't compare me to them whatsoever. That's something I learned a long time ago. Their life is their life. They got to live that accordingly. I want them to maximize their moments. Life consists of multitude of moments, that God has afforded us. To be where we are means we maximize them. And then he also said, these young men, they understand the opportunities as what's before them, and they are preparing themselves right now. So when it comes, they're going to take advantage of it. And I think that was a really insightful answer, because like you said, he gets asked the same questions all the time. Like, I think I have like 4 questions for him that no one's asked. I'm gonna keep him close to the vest for the moment I get to fire him off. but everyone wants to know the same things because we're all so curious about him. One of my questions, I'll tease it right now. I just want to know the last time he didn't have a camera in front of him. I need like a year, like a moment, because I think we'd probably be going back to we'd probably go in 80s maybe. Like he has been on
Yeah.
camera forever. And so that's just one of my like curious questions for him. But yeah, I thought you handled that interview amazingly. You, I think, learned a lot from the interview. Obviously, I'm not going to speak for you, but I think your education from that interview helped all of us who weren't a part of it sort of learn more about Deion Sanders because it was a unique side of him. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, for sure. I think, yeah, man. Like, so there are sometimes like that was my first time meeting him in person. I saw him earlier, and he tripped me out too because so we had already talked previously, and we talked in April for the first time, and he found out who I was. He was like, "Hey, dog, I really like what you're doing. You know, you're honest, you're even." Because I was on one show, and I told the truth. I'm like, man, he's got to do like if you want people to get off your back, you got to win more than 4 games. And, you know, Colorado people are in the comments like, "Oh man, this dude don't know nothing, and this man, you know, he hates Coach Prime." I'm like, "What? He does. It's the truth." And Coach Prime reaches out to me like, "Hey, bro, they're gonna be on your head, but you were very fair." And I think what I will say is there's a way, and I keep saying it, it's just a way to go about doing stuff. And I think from that interview, I think my favorite part was I wanted my goal was to put Coach Prime in the barbershop. I wanted him to not feel like he was at Big 12 media days. I wanted him to talk to me like we were at the barbershop. And I think even there's one point where I asked him like, "Hey, bro, I wear a size 12. Can I get a pair?" He's like, "You can get a hug." And he dapped me up, right? But it was natural. And it was like I said, "Hey, he's one of us." And he texted me. He texted me. He's like, "Told you." And I said, "All right, cool." Like, you know what I mean? So he's a genuinely good guy. And I think and I'll tell you what else, like, man, in this year, my relationships with like in my neighborhood where I'm from, I mentor a lot of the youth, the young athletes. And I talk to a lot of these head coaches. And you can tell when it's transactional because they want to get insight on a player that they know I've been knowing since they've been playing park ball. And you can tell when it's genuine. There are a few genuine guys out there. Kirby Smart, genuine guy. Hugh Freeze, genuine guy. Deion Sanders, genuine guy. And I think the more you're able to interview genuine guys and have them comfortable, you'll get more out of them. And I think that's why I was able to pull that side of Coach Sanders out, which was a lot more playful than you probably have seen him in some face-to-face interviews. And he was candid. He gave me some real talk. So I think by making people comfortable and doing good work, I think that's what I learned from that. And they kind of said, I mean, a week later, I get Kirby Smart to tell me that his dream concert is Quavo from Migos, Luke Bryan, and Tupac.
I won't lie. That was a weird combo. I was like, okay. It's like that's like his Miami. That's like his big 3. That's his LeBron, Wade, and Bosh. And I was like, that is not my LeBron, Wade, and Bosh. I can tell you that.
Right.
Jokingly, I'm gonna ask you a question right now. 3 most insincere coaches. No, I'm just kidding. What is one question that you wish you could ask Deion Sanders now that obviously we've moved on from Big 12 Media Day? The season's right around the corner. If you had like just a minute with him, be like, "Hey, coach, quick question." Boom. What would it be?
How much better do you think Travis Hunter is than you?
Okay. Yeah, I like that one because he has said that he's better. Like we know he thinks he's better, but I want to know why. I want to know the details. Like, what is the difference? I think that'd be a great one. When we come back, we're going to be talking about the upcoming season for Colorado. It's a very exciting season. They have high aspirations. Many fans have low aspirations for them, and a lot of people are betting money on them. And we're going to talk about all that when we come back. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. Appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. Joining me, Phillip Dukes from On3. We just talked about his awesome interview with Deion Sanders. Go check that out over on his page. He does great work all the time. Also, great chain, might I add. I have a small little chain. It's fake. I feel confident when I wear it, though. I won't lie to you. You look good, you play good, right? As the man we're talking about once said.
Right.
So doesn't take much to look good, I would say. But let's talk about this upcoming season. So a little background for everyone. Colorado's win total, according to FanDuel, 5.5. Deion Sanders has talked playoff. He's talked Big 12 title. He has talked overall just bowl game improvement. I think a lot of people are so caught up in last year and forgetting that 4-8 was an improvement because they were 1-11. They were statistically one of the worst college football teams to ever take the field. He improves the team a little bit, has a bump here and there with the offensive coordinator. The defense coordinator thing didn't work out, replaces them. Now he's back. What is your sort of expectation or like what you're looking out for this season?
Yeah, I think Colorado gets right in between 7 and 8 wins. I think.
Okay.
I think they smashed I'm smashing the over personally.
Oh yeah.
I just think like when you're able to you have a battery at quarterback or wide receiver of 2 top 5 picks, that's good for 3 games in my opinion itself. When you're able to add the depth that they've added, like Colson Hood, I've got a lot. I've been watching him a long time. Colson Hood was considered the second starter at Auburn. So an SEC caliber player. You bring in that the defensive lineman out of Pittsburgh, both of them. You bring in the Kai Green Hill. You beat a lot of people for him. Texas A&M wanted him bad. Arkansas wanted him bad. I mean, to play linebacker, he came out of UNC Charlotte. Actually, in high school, he was teammates with Pop Dumas, all SEC linebacker from Georgia, who's now in Kentucky. So you're talking about guys who brought in. I'm just naming this off the top of my head talent that's come into the locker room where these guys want to play. Now you infuse that with a 5-star guy like Jordan Seaton. You bring in some bigger bodies, like so. Even if you don't have the most, you've got bigger athletic guys,
right?
Guys you just didn't have last year. So when we talk about the Big 12, I just think that the rosters are good.
Yeah.
They're not SEC level. And I think that it's a good fit for Colorado. And I think Colorado could do 7-8 wins is a great season, in my opinion. If you add another 3 wins to your win total from last year. And I think as you continue to show proof of concept, it's even better going to a bowl game, showing what Colorado brings. And I'm not saying they can't get high and go to the playoffs, because they can. Right. I saw my man Andy Stables from On3 had UCF in the playoffs. I think UCF can be really good too. But this season can go, they could be the 8-win team, and Colorado could be the 10-2 team. I mean, momentum is so I'm a guy who believes in momentum, especially in a sport as wacky as college football. Think about and I'm an Auburn grad. Think about the Auburn season from 2013 going into 14. You have the miracle at Jordan Hare, where the guy catches the ball and the game is supposed to be over. Come back, then you got kick 6. The momentum that year was just like every time you thought that there was yeah, man, it just happened. So I think that Colorado can have one of those types of years. And I just think that I'm okay for if somebody asked me could you talk about a successful season for Colorado? I'm okay with it being 7-8 wins. I think even if you get 7 wins, 2 seasons removed from 1-11 is insane. And a lot of people talk about the 1-11 teams before then. I think my guy South Florida, I think they were 1-11 previously. But bro, that is like the bottom, like the percentages to win 3. First of all, a 3-win improvement, even for a good team, is good.
Yeah.
If you don't think Auburn wanted 3 more wins than they got last year, you're kidding yourself. Right. Anybody would take 3 wins to the positive. So if you do that in back-to-back years, I think it's just a testament to what Deion Sanders is building.
Yeah, the 3-win thing's a great point. Ole Miss wins 3 more games, they're a playoff team, right? That's how it goes. Right. That's how the cookie crumbles. And so I liked your prediction or the sort of range. Similar to you, I said best case scenario. So this is health, coaching is on par, just everything goes their way because there's a lot of wacky things in the Big 12. Almost 50% of the games were decided by 1 score. And Colorado last year, obviously they were in the Big 12. They lost 4 or 5 one-score games. So you flip that, you add 4 wins to their total. They're 8-4. They have a new offensive line that we talked about. Shedeur Sanders was sacked 52 times. If this line could say he gets sacked 20, that's 32 plays that Shedeur Sanders has extra to make a play, whether it's a handoff, whether it's he's going to scramble here, or he's going to hit a little out route here to Jimmy Horn. Jimmy Horn's going to make a play. That's 30 extra plays. Plus, and I think you were kind of hinting at this as well, the Big 12 is a very deep conference from top to bottom. Like, everyone can beat anyone, right? But there's no team like Oregon last year or Washington who's running the table. There's just not. Like, Utah is probably going to be the closest thing to that. And Utah has never shown the ability to run the table. They always lose one or two, and that's kind of been their thing. And so Colorado has a prime up. No, sorry, that was not a pun intended, but they have a unique opportunity to sort of make a huge statement. And so let's talk about, this is hypothetical here. They win 8 games. Shedeur, first overall pick, first round pick, obviously. Travis Hunter, top 10 pick. And you just sort of feel the buzz in Colorado again. What does that do for recruiting? And what does that do for the trajectory of the program?
I think it works wonders. And I think if that happens, you go out and you get you're going to get one of the top receivers in the port. I think everything is about proof of concept and making people understand that you can reach your goals at this destination. 8 wins at Colorado is going to look like 10 or 11 wins at any other school.
Yep.
I mean, it's just what it is. And once people start to understand, now you got to think, the Jordan Cenas of the world, think about all of the people that he's played with in previous years at every school that he's been to. All right. Those guys are looking at Jordan and saying, man, I wouldn't go mind playing with Jay, man. Jay said it's cool. You look at Colton Hood, who came from Auburn. You look at all of these other guys. You look at RJ, who came from Arkansas. You look at the guys who played at different places who are young that are there. Look, Peyton Kirkland came from Texas. And they're saying, man, they won 8 games. I need to go up there because maybe I can help. Maybe I can build. And you start to get guys who are – see, a lot of times in the transfer portal, people think that it's just a lost and found, where people lose stuff or people throw away stuff that they don't want and people just come – better than a lost and found, they think it's like the Goodwill. It's like, oh, we don't want this anymore. Oh, well, we're going to go shopping here because it's cheaper because we can't get it on our own, right? Well, that's not exactly how it works. Sometimes there are guys who just say, I don't want to be at this school anymore. You want to be the destination for those guys. And I think that's what an 8-4 season gives Colorado. It makes you less of a building block guy and more of a destination type place, because right now you have to sell everybody on, hey, we haven't proven we can win, but we can win a little more than we did the year before. But if you trust us, then, hey, we can prove it to you. Now you're not going and selling trust. You're going and saying, hey, look what we just did with what we had. Now imagine if we have you, because if we can replace this production here and we can replace this guy here, you guys have a similar skill set. Come to Colorado and let's win this natty. I think it works. I think it does wonder, man. I really think in today's society, proof of concept is everything.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree with that. Love that point there. Before we go, it's basically one question, but it'll be a 2-parter. You just have to fill in the blank here. If Colorado struggles this season, it's because blank. And then on the contrary, if they succeed or over exceed expectations, it is because blank.
If Colorado struggles this year, it's because of depth.
Okay.
I think they do have a lot of depth, but a lot of their depth hasn't played a lot of games. They have more talented depth, but if their depth can really provide efficient snaps and play well when they're forced into action, then I think that they'll be better. But if they get in there and they lay an egg, especially at key positions, left tackle, defensive end, corner, if your depth doesn't play well at those positions when things go left, then I think that's going to be probably the Achilles heel for Colorado.
Okay.
If Colorado exceeds expectations, I think it's going to be late game management. I think last year we saw Colorado was in so many games that it's like, hey, some questionable things that went on from the sideline and from the field back to the sideline. So I think they could get that late game management, time clock, and making plays in clutch and crucial situations, not getting penalties and you know, you really don't want penalties in the fourth quarter at all. You don't want penalties anyway, but you definitely don't want it in the glory time. So yeah, I think if they can improve that at especially late game management, I think that's going to be something that'll bode well, especially with a team who did so poorly last year when it came to closing out big games.
I love that point. I've made that point so many times because I think it was an like that cost them games, right? Like USC game, they didn't have timeouts and they were trying to drive down the field, couldn't score a touchdown because they were running the ball, killing the clock. The Stanford game, I think they had like it felt like maybe 7,000 penalties of illegal substitution. I had never seen it happen more than once, let alone like 5 times in the same game. They had moments against Oregon State where they could have just ran the clock out and you go into halftime. It's a 1-score game. They got a little risky, and next thing you know, it was a 21-point swing. So love those points, Phillip. Loved having you on. Tell the people what you're working on, where they could find you, so that way they could keep up to date with all your amazing content.
Man, hey, I'm on On3 Recruits YouTube channel. My show is called the 5-Star Flex. You can just search that. I've actually just got the green light to ramp up my production, so you'll be seeing a lot more of me. And also check me out on Twitter and Instagram at Dukes D Scoop. I'll be doing a lot of content. I'll also be adding more Colorado content to my channel in particular. So man, just look forward to it and come check me out. Let's have fun.
Yeah, check them out. Appreciate you guys checking me out today on Locked On Buffs. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Everyone, have a great day.